1988 film, Killer Klowns from Outer Space, definitely has some iconic scenes. And Bibbo has been on my list as one to do, which had me thinking, instead of just creating another clown look, maybe I should try to recreate one of the moments from the film. And he just happens to be part of a really good one, a scene that even Funko has recreated. Now, I have made enough killer clown heads that I'm pretty sure I can make them in my sleep. So let's start with the Shorty puppet that is going to be in that pizza box. We're gonna wanna make him very lightweight. Gonna rough out the shape using foil. And I've already pre-made some eyes that are gonna go into the sculpture. There's a tutorial on my channel if you wanna see how I made these eyes or if you wanna make a version yourself. I made sure to actually get the pizza boxes before starting the head. That way I could make it to the size of the box instead of struggling to find a box large enough for what I end up building. So I went with a 16-inch size box. That way I'll have a larger puppet than using the standard 12-inch. I'm gonna start ears with some EVA foam. Just hot glue those into place. I'm gonna put a rod in the head and build up the neck. Now he kind of looks like Shorty already, so let's get some foam clay on him and give him some skin. First is just to get a thin layer. Figured it would be easier to do this in layers than trying to do it all at once. Now when he jumps out, he has a goofy grin, but before I go on to the mouth, I'm going to use some Sculpting to make the teeth. And that way I can just push them into clay as I build it. I dremeled out some of the lower areas of the ears. It's pretty rough right now. I'm gonna build up the shoulder area just so I can start to see the proportions. Since he has a costume on, I'm just gonna use duct tape to keep it all together. I'm gonna flesh out the ears a little more. Let's start refining the face and add some eyelids and making sure to make one of those eyes a little sleepier than the other. Building up a rough shape for the mouth. The Sculpting is all baked and cooled down. So I'm just going to go ahead and push the individual teeth into that wet clay. He's looking pretty goofy because he has no lips, but we'll let that set up. Creating more wrinkles in the eyelids, give him a brow and some big round cheeks. Can also start to build up the lips. Just smoothing everything with water right now, building areas up and getting more of those details in. Rolling out little worms of clay to build up the forehead wrinkles. I can't forget that bottom lip. With foam clay, you can sand it. I just don't tend to like to sand this stuff. Part of that might be I just don't have the patience. So I'm just going to jump in with Bondo, which is a mixture of Beta Bond Plus and Cavasil to smooth out, essentially just frosting this thing like a cake. The Bondo has a slight yellow hue compared to the white of the foam clay. So I am gonna have to go over with 50-50 mix of Beta Bond Plus and the white acrylic to cover everything. Now that's dry, we can get into the real painting. The first thing I'm gonna do is protect those eyes. Gonna add a thin layer of latex over them, and that way we can just peel it off when we're done. Starting with texture, gonna spatter some gray. Gonna do some shading with an airbrush, also shading in the mouth. Switch over to black and paint the inside of the mouth. Careful not to get too much paint on the teeth, though they're easy enough to clean up. I'm gonna add in the face markings and that red grin. It did take a few layers to make sure everything was solid. Now I'm gonna add the blue markings, get a little detail work in there, painting the wrinkles, and I went back to airbrushing more shading. We can peel off that latex, and that is so satisfying. Just need to clean up the edges of his eyelid, and I'm gonna add a little bit of a dark color. That's just gonna make his eyes pop more. I felt like the eyes were looking a little dull, so I'm going to go in with a little bit of UV resin and juice them up a bit. Having those glassy eyes up against that duller skin really gives it a lot more character. Figured this would look pretty cool on the teeth too, so let's add that. Now in the scene when Shorty pops up out of the boxes, he pulls out a ray gun. I have a ray gun I built years ago. It's just too large to be able to fit in the pizza box with Shorty. I ended up having to make a new one. The nice thing is this one's gonna be way more lightweight, and I also got to add some lights to it. The whole thing is basically sculpted out of smooth-on freeform air, which is a super lightweight epoxy, and it's also really easy to sand. Though sculpting this was definitely a tedious process. I do have a video on how I built this thing from the ground up if you wanna go a little more in depth. Now, I can't just have the ray gun just popping up without a hand. That would look pretty strange. Thought I'd be slick just use a cotton glove, making a wire armature and stuffing it, shaping it around the ray gun. From there, I can just cover it with latex and build up the fingers to make them a little more clown-like. But then I realized I messed up. The glove has 5 fingers. The clowns have 4. I forgot to cut the pinky off before I started. I did attempt to cut it off later, and that was not working out. I then kind of gave up and tried to start over, not getting the shape I wanted. It just ended up looking too puffy and a little more Mickey Mouse. Instead, I'm just gonna take some wire and cover it with the foam clay. I did wrap the ray gun to protect it from the clay and also will make it easier to peel the clay off. I wanted it to be removable from the hand in case there's another project I wanna use it for. It took a little bit to get it all built up, needs a little more refining. Now, because I am a sucker for detail, I wanted to make sure that my box had the same logo as the box in the movie. In the film, the pizzas are from a place called Amici. Now, Amici still exists, though they had the audacity to not keep the same box branding from the 80s. To get the same pizza box, we're gonna have to make it. Figured the easiest way would be to print it out to size and transfer the outline onto the box. I'm just gonna scribble some pencil in the back so I can transfer the design. And for all the straight lines, I'm just going to use this low tack tape. It's just time to paint. Gonna use regular acrylics. With it all taped up, it was pretty easy, but of course I got a little too confident and accidentally painted outside the lines. Luckily, it was an easy enough fix. As for the letters, now that took a while, but I think this labor of love will be worth it. Now we can go ahead and peel off the tape, but unfortunately it did decide to stick like crazy and completely rip up a section of the box. And it even took the paint with it. Luckily, it's a small enough area, so I was able to patch it pretty well. We have our nice 80s era Amici pizza box. And of course, we're gonna need to cut out a hole in the bottom for Shorty. Okay, so now Shorty's pretty well along, but it's gonna look pretty silly if it's just human me holding this pizza stack. So we're gonna have to start working on Bibbo's head. Gonna build it the same try and true method. First some latex, and we're gonna pile on some cotton. Gently covering it in latex and paper towels. The ear base is EVA foam, and just gonna Dremel some of that out. This is just gonna speed up making them look more 3D. Just taping them in place right now. Gonna use latex to better attach them and also to start to smooth out some of that paper towel texture. Make the ears look less flat with the clay. Applying some thickened latex to build out the head a little bit. It's really not my favorite product. So I ended up just switching to thickened Beta Bond and really start cleaning stuff up. I'm gonna build up the brow and the cheeks, and we need those juicy neck rolls. I'm gonna add some foil over the ears. This is to make sure that I have a large opening for my ears. If you have ever had anything pressing on your ears for a long period of time, it starts to make the cartilage of your ear very sore. I'm just gonna smooth it all down with more thickened glue. And I'm gonna pipe some of the glue to create the wrinkles. Just gently smooth them down a little bit. Build up the brows a little more. This character is a bit chubby, so we're gonna have to make a lower chin piece. Now, I kind of guessed on the size for the chin. It's really hard to tell what would look correct without actually having the headpiece on and seeing everything in proportion. Did the white and gray paint for the base color. And it's time for sewing. My least favorite part of any of these clown projects. You might have seen some of the costumes I have made. Do not be fooled. I don't know what I'm doing. I can kind of get my way around a sewing machine, and I can definitely follow some instructions. I definitely dread this part of the project. Using these shiny satin fabrics, and they are so wrinkled. So we're gonna need to steam those out before we do anything. This stuff is definitely more temperamental than cotton would be, but I like the price and I like the look of the actual fabric. This type of fabric likes to fray like crazy. Just gonna make sure that I kind of burn the edges a little bit to seal them as I go. The costume alternates from yellow and red. I guessed on the pattern where that color switch up should happen. Taking my time because I really want to make sure that these different color panels are straight and line up evenly. Sleeves are usually my mortal enemy, but they actually went without any problem. So the collar has these rolls of fabric. Figure I could make some tubes and stuff them with some filling, but I also left an edge so that I can glue it on better. Cut out some EVA foam for the basic shape of the collar. I started working on a table, but realized that this might make it misshapen once I actually go to put it around my neck. So I'm gonna move it onto a form. And this was a bit of a fight. The footage makes it look easy, but I was having a little bit of an issue. And I'm just gonna fold over that bottom edge to hide that white foam. So the collar came out pretty decent. Did end up a little stiff, but I hid some wires under there so that I could kind of bend it and curve it to my body. And I also kind of did this backing to kind of hide where I was a little short on the length. Now, I have been asked before what shoes I like to use for the clowns, especially for Rudy. I found Nurse garden clogs. These are the most cost-effective. For Rudy, I just got them in black and I use oil paint pens to draw the design on. But for Bibbo, he just has green shoes, so I just got some green clogs. Though granted, I probably would have wanted them a little brighter green. I will order multiple sizes too large. Unfortunately, like the 13s were out. These aren't as big as I would have liked. Since they are larger than my regular shoe size, I will kind of cut insoles just to make them a little snugger so I'll be able to walk around okay in it. Kind of impressed myself with how good the final costume came out. But now I need a mini version because Shorty is gonna need his costume too. I started with the collar, created a rough pattern that I'm gonna repeat in the blue fabric. Again, making sure I'm sealing those edges. Gonna need the collar to be gathered. So I use this trick where you sew the hem with the loosest stitch setting, and then you can take one of the threads and gently pull it and gather the material together. Got some red pom-poms to go on the ends. Now I just have to do the top. For the body, I just kind of made up a template to just a mini version of the full-size top. It didn't come out too bad considering. The one arm, I figured I could just poke the pole through the sleeve. And speaking of the sleeves, he does have these little red details on them. Okay, so the yellow fabric is a little see-through. So I'm gonna go over with some white duct tape and that looks a little better. Both of these guys have some hair we're gonna have to tackle. I'm gonna be using yellow for Bibbo and then airbrush the orange at the root. Pre-glue the area. Then in small sections, cut the hair and gently lay it down. And I'm doing this layer by layer. Synthetic hair doesn't stick to the glue that well. When I do each layer, I like to seal it with a line of glue. Yes, this does take longer, but at the end, I'm able to brush it and style it without worrying about all my work coming undone. And luckily, he doesn't have a full head of hair. Powder everything really quick before I start messing with the hair. I'm going to use some Got2b freeze spray to lightly style how the hair should look because I need to trim it to the length it's gotta be. He's kind of giving Rugrats Cynthia doll right now. I just get everything trimmed down and I do texture the ends a little bit just to make it look more natural. I mean, it's a clown, I guess as natural as that would be. I am piling on so much product because I wanna make sure that hair is not going anywhere. For the orange on the roots, I'm gonna be spraying some Skin Illustrator. I like using alcohol colors because then I don't have to worry about the color rubbing off. And I'm gonna use a paper towel to help protect the scalp from any overspray. Okay, he's done. Time for Shorty. Since he's gonna be popping out of the pizza box, I figured we could use the little puff on his head to push the box open. But the thing is, I don't wanna be doing that with just hair. So I'm gonna take a wire and bend it and cover that in foam clay. This way, there's some kind of hard structure. I did pre-paint it green in case any was showing through the hair and roughly sketched out the hairline. Back to laying hair, just doing that same exact technique. Gonna cover that curly Q with some glue and press some hair onto it. Start to style the main area a little bit. Using freeze spray and gravity really helped to get that shape. Now for the tuft of hair, I'm gonna be using a lot of that Gorilla Snot gel. Time to finish up the styling. Brush it out a little bit so I can trim it to the length that I need. And we're gonna use gravity again to help get that shape, putting a ton of product in his hair because with him popping in and out of the box, we just want that hair to be cemented in place. I did have to check the opening of the box if it was wide enough to clear the hair, and all the hair work is done. Shorty's looking pretty good, but we've only dealt with the top box. And obviously that's not enough to hide the puppet. I figured probably about 10 boxes or less should be able to house Shorty so you don't see him. But I wanted a bigger puppet, so I was looking for larger pizza boxes. And of course, luck would have it, I couldn't find just 10 boxes without paying a ridiculous price for each one. Well, that means we are stuck with 50 pizza boxes. I guess if YouTube doesn't work out, I can always start a business of delivering pizzas as Killer Klowns. Just going to test one out first. Not sure if it's going to be too flimsy to assemble after cutting the holes. So that worked pretty good. Now we just rinse and repeat until we have a tunnel for the puppet to live. And then of course we have the logo, which goes on top. I need to figure out where I'm gonna put my hands in so that I could puppeteer. Also plan to put fake clown hands in front of wherever the hole ends up being, so that way when my sleeves end at the box, it will look like my hands are still holding the box and Shorty comes to life by himself.
The next day.
You might notice the boxes are a little worse for wear. I went ahead and I hot glued all the boxes together. I fortunately did not glue the nice one. When I was figuring I could just use my arm and lift him up, I wasn't considering the fact that I am gonna have to have him pretty low to my body. Tried moving the hole up higher by undoing the hot glue work and then retaping it. The problem with lifting him is he would kind of come at an angle. Really, we just want him to come straight up. Probably just use something like a drawer track. And as far as figuring out how to get the track properly attached and stable, well, that's a future me problem. I am gonna have to cut up the back of the puppet. But the good news is I can screw the track onto that pole, so at least it will be attached a little more solid than trying to attach it to the foam clay. Because let's face it, we don't wanna create any new problems later. Cut some new boxes to replace those torn up ones. Lucky for me, I do not tend to throw things away because you never know what you're gonna need for a future project. This bracket will work perfectly for mounting the track. Gonna reattach the padding to his shoulders. And the duct tape was creating a bit of a texture behind the costume. Gonna hot glue some white felt to smooth it all down. Wanted to reinforce the area of the bracket, attached a piece of plastic over the cardboard, just to lessen the chance that it's gonna rip up from the bolts. Also gonna add a cardboard tube to give a place for the arm to sit. Felt confident enough to hot glue the stack together. After moving Shorty and the arm, I was starting to realize it's a little hard to maneuver, partially because the stuffing in his sleeves has made him a little too chunky. Gonna take that out and also cut the sleeve off and just attach it to the hands separately. You won't even be able to tell the difference unless you're like looking down the pizza box. Still need to add some fake hands to the outer part of the box. I have already updated my clown gloves, so we can use the old ones for this. Also thought it would be smart to add some cuffs to the end of the gloves just to help make it look better and sell the illusion. Gonna stuff them a little bit so they don't look too flat. It's finally time to glue the logo box on top. And let's throw those hands on. The one side, I did have the fingers coming around the edge because it just looked a little more fun. Now, the last thing for the pizza stack, I got this magnet camera mount so that I can wear the one part around my waist and then the other side is inside of the boxes. This is just gonna help hold it up while I can focus on puppeteering. I wanted to do this because I really didn't want to have to put any kind of holes in the costume in case there's times I want to walk around without the pizzas. Well, it is time to finally put all of this together. Starting with some Derma Shield, might as well protect my skin. Also using Telesis silicone adhesive because I plan on going out in public all dressed up and I want a glue that is gonna last all day. Blend out with some latex. Now the head. Did notice that the edges are laying right on my eyebrows. So we're gonna cover them with some paper tape since I would prefer to have some brows when I rip this thing off at the end of the night like a feral goblin. gluing everything down. And now my neck has the range of motion akin to Keaton's Batman. Should be an interesting day. Looking at the pieces, the bottom half really should be thicker. Admittedly, I am not thrilled about this because I'm on a tight schedule and building it up is going to eat into my painting time, but let's do it. Just gonna use cotton and latex, paper tape to hold it down and cover the cotton. Blow dry, latex, and repeat. Smooth it with some thickened glue and a bunch more blow drying. So at this point, I am contemplating my life's choices.
2 hours later.
Okay, dry enough to move on. Then on to Skin Illustrator White so it will last. Same spatter treatment on my face as I did on the head earlier, but then I realized the inner part of the brows really should be built up. You can see the enthusiasm on my face at this moment. Might as well do it. Okay, finally back to painting. Draw out some wrinkles and a little shading, and then we can start on those markings. I'm gonna rough out the mouth shape for now and paint in the cheeks. Just do a solid coat of pink so we can add wrinkles later. Next, doing those blue markings and bouncing around a lot with these because I usually like to lightly sketch out where everything goes, but we gotta get moving. Spent so much time doing those cotton buildups. Let's add some wrinkles around the eyes. Went with dark red for the shadows first, then highlight with some lighter pink and a little bit of white. I'm gonna be smart and paint the black lines down the eyes now because I know if I save this for later, I will forget to do this. A little purple around the eyes at the exact moment my light decides to die. Okay, we're back on track and add some shading, just trying to make everything look more 3D. He has black circles around the pink, so did one eye and then ended up skipping over to the lips. I also resorted to my hand mirror and sort of forgetting to hold it out of frame for filming. I was just so focused in just getting this painting done as fast as I could. I had people involved with this whole going out in public plan, and we still have to shoot the doorway scene. Usually these makeups just kind of take as long as they take because I'm not on any kind of schedule. That's why everything might seem a little more chaotic than my normal videos. Really just want to flesh out the details, getting those shadows darker and popping up those bright hot spots. Okay, so that makeup definitely felt like a speed run, if anything. But now the true question, can we recreate that scene? And yes, me and a couple friends did run amok for a bit. And no, I did not bring the pizza boxes. I do need to do a larger magnet connection so it's a little more comfortable to walk around in public. But maybe I will revisit this look at the next Monster Palooza and have Shorty in tow. And speaking of Palooza, if you want to see me bring Rudy to life, be sure to click over to the next video and I will see you there.